Hello, I'm Drew Underwood. I'm the Senior Safety Consultant here at HSE Safety, and just wanted to give you a quick update on the HSE plans and targets for the upcoming year. So we're actually working on the 21 and 22 targets with the HSE at the moment. They haven't changed anything for the past year. They're still focusing on four main areas, the first of which being that they are going to lead engagement with the industry, and they're going to be updating and changing a few of the ways that they try to approach that. They're going to be trying to ensure an effective regulatory framework, make sure that the law works and adapts to a few things which they've had to change as a result of some government decisions. They're going to be ensuring effective risk control, so trying to target their work in the highest risk areas, and they're going to continue their work looking to try and reduce the number of catastrophic incidents that we could see or have seen over the past few years. So the first category we're going to look at is the leading and engagement. So again, this is going to continue their theme of trying to get industries in general to focus on health as much as they have with safety. It's an issue we've seen for a number of years now, that they really are all about ill health and long-term problems, much more so than we've ever seen. That's going to include a bit of an update to the manual handling guidance. And specifically, they're going to be making some of the tools to do manual handling assessments available online, a little bit of a toolbox for employers to try and make that a bit easier for everybody and try and make it a little bit more accessible for people. In addition to that, on that same sort of topic of leading and engaging, they're going to be working very closely with scientists and researchers to try and get a better understanding of exactly what the health issues we've got are and try and find effective ways to deal with them. And by increasing the amount of work they do online and making their work more accessible via those platforms, they're going to try and reach more people and people who are capable of making change in businesses and adapting their workplaces to keep people healthier. So the next major issue they've got is trying to ensure that the regulatory frameworks, so the laws that they look after, are suitable and up to date. Now they've got one big change to come, which is they've got to really start looking at establishing a whole new regulator. So they're going to need the building safety regulator. This speaks to a little bit of a law change which is coming up in the next couple of years as an issue related to the Grenfell fire. There's going to be a new law, which is the Building Safety Act, and that will require them to have a whole new branch to deal with. So part of their work is going to be putting that new organisation together within themselves. The HSE is still trying to deal with some of the fallout from Brexit. Namely, we've got to do a lot of work trying to regulate chemicals coming into the country. That was always something that was previously done by the European community. Having left, we now have to take on that responsibility ourselves and come up with new plans, new sort of regulatory tools to make sure that the chemicals we've got are safe for ourselves and the environment. So the final piece to their regulatory framework plans is that they've got to try and deal with the new net zero carbon targets. Now, this is something they've got to do as a government department anyway, as all government departments will have to do, but they're also going to be heavily involved in the new hydrogen fuel plans, which are going to be looking at getting those into the national grid over the next coming decades. So they need to be very much involved and on top of that. The third major target for the year is the management and control of risk. Now, this is an area where we are going to see a little bit of transition because a lot of the targets originally set in 2020 for the next couple of years were looking at the influence of COVID and trying to ensure COVID compliance among businesses. With the regulations for COVID having been relaxed to the extent that they now have been, a lot of that is now largely irrelevant, and those COVID issues or the COVID inspections will start to disappear. However, they will still continue to note those issues where they do come up, and they are going to still carry on looking at ill health in general. So one of the targets they did set themselves was to carry out at least one targeted action campaign for construction respiratory hazards, which we've already had. We had that in October of 2021. That has now ceased, but it's still going to be a big influence for the inspectors as they come out to sites. Other areas they're looking at is trying to ensure that they promptly investigate major incidents. That these days largely means the fatal and very, very serious accidents. They just don't have the manpower at this time to investigate the vast majority of even major incidents they get. The other major thing that they've got to do in this area is ensure that their statutory schemes are up to date. Now, this might be an area that you don't see a huge amount of them on a day-to-day basis, but they do run a number of the licensing and permissioning schemes for industries such as the nuclear industry, but also asbestos, and they have to keep those up to date, keep those licenses being checked, and make sure that business can operate with the correct permissions in place. So the fourth big area of targets for the HSE is the reduction of catastrophic incidents. Now again, this is probably an area you're not going to see them doing every day. They're going to be working with the very high hazard industries, or major hazard industries as they refer to them, to ensure that they are managing the serious risks effectively. Now, one of the things that they require in that case is things like safety cases. A safety case is a detailed analysis that these major hazard industries have to do to make sure that they have considered all the potential risks, all the potential consequences of a failure at their establishment. The HSE is going to be going through and rechecking all of those, making sure they're up to date, that they're suitable, and that they're making the changes necessary to ensure that we're adapting to technology and keeping those in place and as effective as possible. One of the other things that they're going to be doing is trying to focus a lot of their major hazard attention on what we're referring to now as the technological and the network infrastructure. So these are areas which has been identified in another government study, which look at the UK's sort of risk in terms of our increased reliance on technology, on the security of some of our networks, and the HSE is going to be heavily involved in working with those industries to try and ensure that safety and catastrophic incidents in those areas not only don't contribute to our sort of lack of security as a nation, but also don't contribute to the immediate lack of safety to individuals working in them. That's all we got for the HSE targets for this year. Obviously there is huge amounts more detail to each of those plans which you can find, and if you really want to, the HSE does publish a full list and a full workup and explanation of all their targets, and you can find that simply by googling HSE targets year 2022, and you can find all the information you need. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope it has been of use to you.